Want to learn power chords? Want to know the how and the why of power chords for making great music? Want to learn a better way of fretting power chords than most people use? If you answered yes to any of these questions, keep watching. I'm David Harsh with Guitar Success for You. I'm here to provide a fresh perspective for you today on power chords, which will show you some aspects of understanding, fretting, and even voicing them that you may not have even thought about. I'm going to answer 12 questions about power chords, some of which you may not even realize you want the answers to. We'll even touch on alternate tunings, and before our time is done, I just might play two guitars at once. By the time you've finished this lesson, you'll know exactly why, how, when, and where to play the power chords you want. Let's get into it. Power chords are made up of perfect intervals, which sound powerful. I'm going to use these Boomwhackers percussion tubes to show you how power chords can be constructed. Let's try a power chord based on the root note G. If we walk up the G major scale, we have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. A G major chord will have three notes, G, B, and D. That's 1, 3, and 5. But power chords aren't major. A G minor chord will also have three notes, G, B flat, and D. That's 1, flat 3, and 5. But power chords aren't minor either. All they consist of is 1 and 5. So in this case, G and D. Yes, if we just play G and D, we have what's called a dyad, which is an interval of two notes. But power intervals don't sound quite as righteous as power chords. So there's some flexibility with the terminology. You may know the answer to this is also yes. By definition, a chord typically consists of three or more notes played simultaneously. So you can add another root on top. So we could have G, D, and G for a power chord. But how we fret a three-note power chord is up for debate. If we start with our two-note chord from G to D, with fingers 1 and 3, and then drop our pinky in on the high G, we have three notes that make up this power chord. We have perfect intervals all over the place. We have G to D for a perfect fifth. We have D to high G with another perfect interval, the perfect fourth. And then this three-note chord is actually framed by a perfect octave from low G to high G. So all the intervals in a power chord are perfect or perfectly consonant in that they sound pure and simple. This chord would be called a G5. Some people call it a G5 no third. But wait, there's more. Like my infomercial voice? Here's the deal. Most people play power chords with fingers 1, 3, and 4, as I just did a moment ago. But what is the potential danger of fretting them this way? Well, other strings ringing unnecessarily, especially in certain locations on the fretboard, like this. Now you might be like, dude, just don't strum those strings. Yeah, well, if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that the hands can work together to help the chords sound clean. It's not just up to the strumming hand. The fretting hand can help too. If you want more of an insight into my thinking, check out this video on clean chords. Your ears will be grateful to hear only the notes you want them to hear, and not the extra notes that can potentially cause the chord to sound muddy. So what do I propose here with power chords that seems to be far less common? Lay the third finger across two strings. This allows you to fret the notes you want, but also to lightly touch the next string or two beyond those strings, thereby silencing them. The ring finger is much stronger in its musculature than the pinky is anyway. Plus, it can add to the percussive sound of your playing. Power chords are strummed in a lot of genres, often down. You can hear power chords with rock, punk rock, or muted for 80s style. And more. You'll have clean sounding chords if you fret your power chords with just the index and ring fingers. Yes, we could move our G5 over one string to be based on string 5. Can you tell me, if I stay here on the 3rd fret, what this chord will be called? A C5, or a C5 no 3rd. What's cool is that it's the same shape. You don't have to learn a new voicing because it's only 2 or 3 notes. One pro tip I recommend here is using the index to lightly touch the 6th string so it doesn't ring open and cause the chord to sound muddy. So we've got power chords based on string 6 and power chords based on string 5. At a certain point, the power chords on the 5th string will overtake the voicings on the 6th string. When I get to the 8th fret on string 6, I'm playing a C5, which I may as well play on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. But it all depends on context and where you are at the time. If you want to play a power chord based on the 4th string, you can play a perfect 5th, and this would be an F5, right? But if you want a 3-note chord, you'll need to make an accommodation for the tuning. You'll need to bring your pinky back into the mix to play the high root. Going further to the B flat 5 chord based on string 3, you'll need to lay your pinky across strings 2 and 1. That is, of course, unless your guitar is tuned symmetrically in fourths. If you're curious about what that's all about, stay tuned for another video. But this guitar, tuned in fourths, allows for the same shaped power chords across the neck. That's because the tuning is totally symmetrical. Right? Pretty wild. Sure can. Here's a low G power chord on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. And here's that power chord an octave higher on the 10th fret of the 5th string. Well, we've got 2 basic low open power chords that qualify based on open string 6 and open string 5. Want to guess what they are? You can probably tell me. The first one is E5, or E5 no 3rd. But you might be thinking, that just looks like an open E minor chord. You'd be right, but only if you had open strings across the neck. Look closely. Those X's are meant to show that the chord only has 3 notes ringing. So how do I voice this? Well, I typically don't voice it like I would in E minor because I might accidentally play an E minor chord. I'd voice it with my index finger across strings 5 and 4. I do want that open 6th string E to ring for this. For the other open power chord, A5, I can lay my index across strings 4 and 3. Remember, this is A5, not A sus2, right? Watch those X's. The trick here is to make sure that the open 6th string doesn't ring. And that's where the thumb can move around to lightly touch that string and keep it from ringing. The strumming hand does have some responsibility here, not just to strum wildly, but controlled, working in tandem with the fretting hand. So to summarize thus far, we have power chords based on the 6th string, whether open or fretted, with 2 or 3 strings. And we have power chords based on the 5th string. Again, whether open, fretted across 2, or 3 strings. Good so far? It's going to get better and even more interesting, believe me. Before we go there, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. You'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did. You're going to want to know what's coming up on our channel, and this is how you do that. Sure can. Let's play this out. Some people play G like this, but that's not a power chord, it's a major chord, right? I instead rest the middle, the second finger, against string 5, thereby muting it. And then I have this nice clean chord made up of, you guessed it, 2 notes, G and D. The notes across the chord are G, D, G, D, and G. That is a power chord. Other open power chords I'll quickly show you are C5, E5, A5, and D5. These are a bit trickier to play because of their reach, but you can learn them if you want to incorporate them into your songs. They may just take some time. Absolutely. It's actually the best way to prove that your guitar is in tune. I came across a book 25 years ago or so called Tuning the Guitar by Ear, a practical new approach for the uncompromising musician by Gerald Klickstein. This book opened my eyes to the process of tuning and tempering the strings. I linked to the book in the description. It's not for the faint of heart, but it will enhance your tuning in an unprecedented way. In addition to tuning each string carefully to the 5th string and testing it using harmonics and fretted notes, Klickstein walks you through the importance of testing multiple strings with neutral power chords. Here's the deal. Without getting too deep into the physics of sound, the interval of a major third is a very subjective interval to hear. It's pretty forgiving because you can sort of hear the major quality to it even if the third is slightly out of tune. But a perfect 5th? Not so much. This interval is relentless. It's either in tune or it's not. I'm going to purposefully put my 1st string slightly out of tune. Check out this D major chord. It's pretty close. Passable, maybe. But now check out this D5 power chord. Hear how totally out of tune that 1st string is? The perfect 5th leaves no room for error. It's totally uncompromising. So, in addition to using whatever method of tuning you like, I recommend using multi-string power chords to verify that your guitar is in fact in tune. See? Power chords aren't just fun to play, they're useful for tuning as well. Yes, I think we've established that today. But if you haven't played power chords before, get an electric guitar into your hands and run it through a distortion pedal. That'll add some serious rock depth to your sound. Here's my answer to that question. I've arranged and performed songs on the guitar in at least a dozen tunings. Alternate tunings open up all kinds of possibilities for the adventurous guitarist. One of my favorites is Dadgad, which, through the magic of video editing, I now have tuned this guitar to. The notes are D, A, D, G, A, and D. But I can fret just one note here, and I have a D5 chord with D, A, D, A, and D. I can keep this shape intact and move it up the neck as a 6-string power chord. It's a bar chord and a power chord. Also, remember the shape of the 3-note power chord we've been working on based on string 6? Well, that shape changes here because of the lowered 6th string. Now we have a power chord straight across strings 6, 5, and 4, so we can go crazy with hammers, slides, and pulls simultaneously on 3 strings at the same time and keep the shape the same. Check it out. Pull, hammer, hammer, slide, slide, pull, pull. Right? Here are a few more. So those are all power chords in this alternate tuning. I've got something unexpected for you, but it's still on topic. To round this discussion out, I'll show you a quick example of a song I wrote where I play two guitars at once. The guitar I'll play with my hands is now tuned to standard, but down a half step. And the guitar I'll play with my feet is tuned to C, G, C, G, C, C. And last I checked, that's a power chord. It's a C5 with just two notes. I have a handy tool my dad and I made, which I call a foot fretter, that allows me to bar across all the strings as I strum them with my right foot, which is outfitted with picks and duct tape. Thank you, MacGyver. So, everything I will play right now consists of only power chords. Perhaps that's why this song works. Well, you could take a song you know and just play it with power chords. Seriously. Now, my guitar is back in standard tuning at concert pitch, like it has been for most of today's lesson. I'm going to show you how to trick your ear into hearing chord qualities with power chords beyond their voicings based on context. Remember, even though none of these power chords is major or minor, your ear will hear them in the context of a progression and be able to tell if you're in a major or minor key. Check this out. G, D, E minor, C, G. That's a major progression, but now I'll play those as power chords. I still hear them as having those qualities. How about this? A minor, E minor, F, G, A minor. That's a minor progression. Let's try that progression with power chords. It works. I still totally hear the tonality of A minor. See? Real music can totally be made possible with power chords. Now, one super important aspect of power chords you may not have considered is the importance of moving smoothly between them. If we're not careful, our transitions between these chords can sound sloppy because we're not making the switch smoothly enough. Good news though, I have a fun, informative video all about how to avoid sloppy chord transitions. I encourage you to check it out. I'll see you there.